crocodile teeth, very precipitous increases in release language, a sharp, quick turnaround to building tension, and then back to release language that carry us through to another tipping point in October of 2011. I haven't done much work on that tipping point that far out, so I really can't speak to what's going to be around it, but we can discuss the basically we can start drilling down and decide, okay, you want to know about 2011, you have to tell me when and where we're discussing.
Okay. Well, let's start with one of the areas that you said was building a lot of the tension recently, the Koreas. Seems like this kind of been a tit for tat back and forth here for a couple of months now. What do you see happening in the Korean Peninsula there? And do you guys see anything possibly including China or Russia with that as well?
We do have a lot of Korea information relative to after the building tension stuff comes back, but it's actually not in February. It's in the latter part of February and well into March. The language we have suggests that even now, China and Russia are hobbling, if you will, or deflecting what has been going on in the Koreas.
Right.
Okay, so let us look at our assumption. We have to ask ourselves at this point, before we get into a discussion of this, are we as individuals of the opinion that history is just a collection of accidents? If we are, then basically nothing what I'm going to say from this point forward will make any sense. If, on the other hand, we are of the opinion that history is the collection of what is allowed to be collected by the powers that be relative to their successful conspiracies, then we can discuss this in a meaningful fashion. Because it is my opinion that, and I have some level of data to support that opinion, that the issue with Korea, the Koreas popping back up again, was not, if you will, an organic outbreak of release language, but was rather an engineered level of release language, deliberately done so by the powers that be. So our data suggests that as the powers that be find themselves into more difficult straits here over the remainder of January and well into February, especially with the late February, let's just call it a blood wash. We won't call it a blood bath, and we just won't go there. But after that incident in late February, the pressures that have been brought on the Koreas to become an emotional point of fixation will fade. And our data actually shows that China and Russia and both Koreas are going to form into a much more harmonious or cooperative group later, probably in June, July, and August, we'd see the first part of that manifesting. So
Really?
basically, our data doesn't show the Koreas lobbing nukes at each other.
Well, that's a good thing, I suppose. so,
Now,
so
now this idea, though, this description is predicated on the idea that the powers that be don't change their minds.
sure.
Right. They could at any moment become quite irrational and very desperate given the circumstances that will develop over February and March, and then decide they need to do something in a last-ditch effort, even though they are probably quite convinced it won't work.
And you mentioned there that both the Koreas that your data is indicating will do something with Russia and China. So North and South Korea in with that?
Sure.
Okay.
South Korea is a shining example of self-interest, enlightened self-interest, and directed thought as a population. They are not. Yes, they to a certain extent have emotional attachments to America, but they are not the kind of individuals that will decide that because of their loyalty, they're going to go down with the American empire.
Okay.
That kind of thing.
Gotcha. And you mentioned a blood loss or bloodletting late February. Is that in relation to the Koreas in particular, or is that
No,
pinned down?
no, no, no. That has nothing to do with the
Okay.
Koreas. That's related to the powers that be. These individuals that believe themselves to be all powerful and in control of things, and so far have demonstrated they're pretty damn good at it. We've got to give them that.
Sure.
will find that their reality view will be tested by the occurrences in February and into March. And it will involve, as I say, a blood wash, not a blood bath.
Okay.
Still, it'll get everybody's attention.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay, and let's transition a little bit past the Koreas, I guess, into a lot of people have been talking about the major earthquakes lately. Are you seeing anything more with major earthquakes here in the next few years, or
Sure,
volcanoes,
sure,
things like that?
sure. Everybody had better, or people should understand that solidity in reality does not exist, and that extends all the way around. The crust of the earth is not solid. It
Right.
is even if you accepted the idea of material matter and atoms actually touching each other, which I discount. But even if you were in that viewpoint, you would acknowledge that the crust is basically composed of all these rocks that are cooperating to hang together given the forces that are on them. Now, these forces that control how these rocks hang together on our little ball in space will be seriously tested by the occurrences of the sun and are being so tested now. So it will escalate rapidly and continue to the point where in late 2011, all the way into 2012, it will probably be the number one thing on everybody's mind other than their daily survival. In other words, those individuals that have the ability to think of something other than the fix they find themselves in at the moment will wonder basically, oh geez, what's next?
Any particular areas that you're seeing, or will it be the same areas that have experienced major earthquakes
No,
before?
no, it's going to be this is going to be unlike anything that has been experienced in the past. This is one of those times where we can definitively say that past performance is not a guide to future activities. The sun's 88-day cycle continues. So from the end of January, the next end of the next cycle is April 19th. There is a debate now within the what I fondly call the woo-woo community at the extreme edge of it. There's a debate now as to whether it will be the end of that cycle or the end of the next cycle, which is on July 15th, that will start what we're calling continuous action. The continuous action idea is the following. The sun is at the end of a 26,000 year cycle that is divided, as is everything, into two halves. This 13,000 year cycle, every time a 13,000 year half cycle ends, you get all kinds of chaos throughout the solar system. We're experiencing that now.
Right.
The sun has been into this mode for a number of years. Because we live very short lives, we can't really see it in its grand totality. But basically, from the end of the last 13,000 year cycle, it's been working on getting to the end of this one. And we're at that point now. The Mayan calendar count may or may not be precisely accurate, but it's immaterial as to whether it's precisely accurate. If the peak of all of the effects are going to be in December of 2012, we'll still have effects all the way out to 2040, simply because it takes a long time for things to settle down.
Right.
So it's not that kind of instant doom that that a lot of the doom addicts want. Nonetheless, they will find that they will no longer be doom addicts by the time we get to mid 2012. They will have had more than enough of it. The reason that I say this is because we're going to see earthquakes all over the place where we don't normally see them because the planet is reshaping itself. There are many arguments as to how that reshaping will occur and exactly what will happen. There are, for those people that say that the reshaping that we're seeing at the moment, the occurrence of the earthquakes, the volcanoes, and the sinkholes, which you must constantly think the sinkholes now as part of this natural process, because we're no longer dealing with sinkholes caused by water or oil depletion. We're dealing with sinkholes that are caused by the giant rocks of the crust separating and then causing the whole structure above them to drain down a little bit.
Hmm.
And so the sinkholes, in my estimation, are the first accurate signs of crustal displacement at a large level. There have been others, but they were the first for me that popped up into general awareness. We'll see those all over the place. So the whole of the planet will reshape itself. One of the arguments is that what's going to happen is that the equatorial bulge, bear in mind the Earth is not a perfect sphere. It is what's known as an oblate spheroid. Because we spin it a particular way and we have this relationship to the planets and the sun, we're fatter around the equator than we are if we were to take a line around the north and south poles. We're fatter around the equator by a total of 26 miles, and that's 13 miles of water on